parish and town councils affected by the works. Just to do some quick introductions to the Somerset team, if that's okay. My name's Andy Coupe. I am the head of infrastructure programmes at Somerset Council. If I could just ask Richard Gorse just to put his kind of hand up, as it were. Richard is the service manager for major scheme delivery. So he's effectively the kind of client, effectively kind of for the project. We've also got Richard Needs, who is the principal designer for the project. Also on the call today, we've got Greg Brock. Greg is the project manager who will manage the contract with our contractor Heidelberg for delivery of the project. And I've also got Andy Doyle is here from a comms perspective. And I think we've also got a couple of colleagues representing the LCN. So we've got Michelle as well, Michelle Brooks. And finally, Councillor Richard Wilkins, the exec member for that involves the highways portfolio here as well. So have I missed anybody out in terms of the Somerset team? Apologies if I have. No. Okay. So with that, I'll hand over to Greg Brock, if it's okay, to take us through the scheme, give us an overview of it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm just going to give you a quick run through as to what we've got planned at Junction 26 and the Chelston link. Just an overview in terms of the construction methodologies, etc. Just by way of a brief background, and I'm sure quite a lot of you know this already, but the concrete carriageway, as it's locally known, was built back in the 1970s when the M5 was being built through the southwest, and is now over 50 years old. The road's made of concrete, and I'm sure, as you've all seen, it's rapidly deteriorating and urgently needs replacing. So unfortunately, doing nothing isn't really an option, and we've got to do something. And I think a lot of people appreciate this project is long overdue. So Somerset have been successful in securing government funding to deliver this project, and that money, 5.7 million, can only be spent on delivering this project. And Richard Gorst will cover finances in a bit more detail later on in the slide deck. As part of trying to make the project as efficient as possible, we're going to utilise a modern construction technology called rubberization, and I will cover in a bit what that entails. But there's a few key benefits to it. Not only is it carbon efficient, and Richard will again touch on that a bit later on. It also results in some significant time savings over traditional construction methodologies, and also reduces the risks associated with normal excavations you'd have on a traditional project. The bad news, I guess, associated with that, albeit it's inevitable with any major project, is the disruption it will cause. And as part of delivering the project, we will need to close Junction 26 and the Chelston Link Road from the 15th of June until late September, albeit access to Foxmoor Business Park will be maintained throughout that duration from the A38 direction. So they won't be able to access the business park from Junction 26. Junction 26 will be completely closed, but they will be able to access it from the A38. And then just a little bit of a background on the timings of that. So there's been a lot of detail on this and a lot of discussion with National Highways about closing Junction 26, and that timescale has been agreed, and it's been dictated by National Highways work on the M5. But also the need to allow National Highways access to their gritting depot, and effectively National Highways need uninterrupted access to Junction 26 throughout the winter period in order to maintain the network and hit their gritting requirements. So that's where we are. In terms of the construction detail, there's a photo on the right of the rubberization. There's two main parts to the scheme, really. Underneath the M5 itself, so on the junction 26 roundabout, we will need to use traditional construction methods, really, where we'll do full depth carriageway reconstruction, so effectively take out the old road and put a new road back in. And the reason for that is because we have limited headroom underneath the M5 itself. But for the majority of the A38 Chelston link, we are going to use a technique called rubberization, where we break up the old concrete road but leave it in position, and then use that as the foundation for the new road surface, and effectively lay black tarmac over the top, thereby saving all the export of material and all the import of new material. And that same technology has been used on airport runways and other facilities around the country. The additional, because we're building up from the existing level, the additional carriageway depth will increase the height down to the drainage ditches, which will in turn bring drainage efficiencies to that area. So that's another benefit of this method. Just a very quick video clip as to what rubberization is, just to give you an idea. I'll just play a few seconds of it. So you'll see in the background there the concrete carriageway, and here it is being rubberized to form the foundation of the new road surface. And this machine works very quickly up through the road, breaking it up, allowing us to continue then with the new road surface. So on that, I'll hand over to Richard Needs, who's going to talk through the traffic management proposals associated with delivering the scheme.
Thanks, Greg. So the contractor has proposed 4 phases to the scheme, but in reality, the whole programme is driven by phase 1 and phase 2, which are the areas of reconstruction around the circulatory carriageway of junction 26. So those works will involve excavation down to about 800 to 900 millimetres below existing road level and rebuilding it back up to the original ground level. The intention is to effectively split the roundabout into 2 halves and excavate the western half first, with access to the motorway for the National Highways maintenance team via the northbound on slip and southbound off slip, and then to swap it over and re-excavate or excavate the eastern half and use the western half to give access to the motorway network via the southbound on, northbound off slips. Whilst those works are being undertaken, which will take us through to September, we will rubberize and overlay the section of carriageway from the roundabout all the way up to Chelston roundabout. The first section, indicated in blue on the screen, will involve no traffic at all using that section, but the northern half will actually be done in a more controlled manner, such that we maintain access to Foxmoor Business Park through traffic control. The existing carriageway is 3 lanes wide for the vast majority of that length, and so we can utilise 1 lane undertaking works while we have traffic in the other 2 lanes, or if need be, we can put temporary traffic lights up, bearing in mind that the traffic flows will be much reduced because it'll only be traffic needing to access Foxmoor Business Park and exit from Foxmoor Business Park. There will be the need to undertake some weekend stroke overnight work adjacent to Chelston roundabout, where there's an area of reconstruction required as we blend the levels back down to existing, and that will be undertaken under traffic control, probably with convoy working to bring vehicles through the works and then release them down to Foxmoor Business Park. So all of that will be undertaken whilst the reconstruction works have been undertaken at junction 26. So they're going to be working in different phases, but it's all at the same time. Obviously, the works will require closures. So as you'd expect, the closure of the M5 junction 26 will necessitate vehicles being diverted down to either 27 or back up to 25, depending which way they're coming from and which way they wish to go to. That diversion route has been discussed with and agreed with Devon County Council, and the timing of it has been agreed with them, as it has been with the Streetworks team within Somerset. The local network generally stays as it is, apart from the closure to Sawyers Lane, which will be introduced about the first week in June, a couple of weeks earlier than the main closure. The reason for closing Sawyers Lane is that it doesn't actually enable anybody to use it anyway, because we don't want vehicles coming down Sawyers Lane trying to get onto junction 26. And also it enables us to use that area for a site compound for the site offices and the welfare units for the contractor. The diversion for that will be back through the local network to the A38, either via Silver Street or the other lane shown on the drawing. And from the south, we will be closing the short link between Gerbiston Lane and junction 26, and local traffic that would normally come through that link will be diverted back to Ford Street and back up to the A38. In addition to that, we will put signs along the spine road, as we're calling it, to the south, to deter people from trying to access junction 26 from the local network, and sign it as no access to junction 26, which will encourage them to go further south, further west to join the local network and get onto the M5 either at 27 or go back towards Taunton and get on at 25. I think that's probably all I've got to say on traffic management.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. The only point I'll mention quickly, just because it came up at member briefings yesterday and parish discussions, is the service station between junction 25 and junction 26. I'm sure some of you are already aware that the local network have sometimes been using the service station as an easy route onto the M5. Obviously that isn't permitted, so we're in discussion with National Highways and the service station operators at the moment, just in terms of getting those barriers closed, so that they can only be used for authorised vehicles, so that we don't sort of flood the local network with people trying to access junction 26, the M5 incorrectly via the service station. So that's, I think that's everything on traffic management. So I'll hand over to Richard Gorse just to chat through finances.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Richard. I'm just going to touch briefly on finances. We'll then cover a slide on carbon efficiencies and then look at next steps for the project. So in terms of finance, Somerset have been successful in securing central government funding via the Department for Transport Maintenance and Challenge Fund and the Highways grant to the total of £5.7 million. In addition, there's £500,000 of carbon reduction contribution, and that really highlights some of the, or an awful lot of the good work that's been included and baked into the project with regards to carbon reduction. If we can just go to the next slide, Greg. In short, retaining the material using the rubberization process on site, so in situ retention, leads to about 3,000 meters cubed of material, which equates to about 7,300 tons of material that no longer needs to be removed from site. So the material stays there, is broken up and reused. That translates into about 1,130 reduced lorry movements across the life cycle of the project, which in turn transfers into about 200 tons of carbon saving across the project in comparison to traditional construction methods. So a really strong carbon credentials, and it's something that the team have worked very hard to achieve. In terms of next steps for the project, this week's been a big week for everybody. The discussions with the LCNs have commenced, discussions with stakeholders have commenced. We've also been speaking with the MPs, parish and town councils, and begun discussions with the local business owners. Andy Doyle's worked really hard on a communications plan, which involves involves press releases, a social media campaign, and these will be fine-tuned once these briefings have taken place. These briefings are very much an opportunity for us to gain further input from you guys as community representatives that will allow us to tweak the project prior to delivery. So we'll pick those up in the various communications, and we'll be issuing regular updates. I just mentioned that the team are already working closely with local stakeholders. For instance, we've already been out to Foxmoor Business Park to talk to those businesses that are closely affected by these works, and we'll be rolling out those stakeholder discussions in the coming weeks, reaching out to the remainder of the business community and the public. With regards to the public, we're also going to be hosting a series of public events, so drop-in sessions during the month of May. Andy Doyle's in the process of fixing venues for these. We're looking at Wellington, West Buckland, and potentially beyond. These drop-in sessions are something that are very much business as usual for us as a major projects delivery team. We have a format whereby we utilise a village hall or similar, and invite members of the public and members of the local community to come and have a cup of tea, talk to us in the village hall, where we will have presentations and the plans available, just so that we can receive feedback and do our best to address any concerns. So Andy Doyle will be in touch shortly with regards to dates and venues for those sessions. It's important at those sessions, it will be the team that you see here, so myself, Richard, Greg. We'll also have representation from the contractor there, so we can talk in a lot of detail about the construction process of traffic management and those types of things. Finally, we're in the process of setting up a dedicated web page for this project, so that members of the community can drop in and find out more about the scheme as a whole. They'll also be able to access via that web page frequently asked questions about the project, and receive regular updates with regards to progress on the project. In addition, there'll also be contact details on that web page that will take members of the public directly to, or allow them to directly contact us as members of the project team with any concerns, so that we can provide necessary responses to questions. So that's I think that's everything I wanted to cover in terms of finances, carbon, and where we are at the moment with regards to the comms process. With that, I'll hand back to Andy Coupe to invite any questions, and I can already see some hands coming up.
Thanks. I'll pick that up there. Sarah, please come in.
Hi everybody, and I had the benefit of listening to part of this last night. I was a bit late joining because of other commitments, so it's given me 24 hours to have a bit of a think about this. So I'm sorry, I've got a bit of a list. I think the local information and liaison sharing, given that this project's been on the table for a long time and been rescheduled 2 or 3 times, I think we're a bit late in coming to the table with information for local residents and businesses. But we are where we are, and I have to say that I'm really pleased that the work is going ahead. It does need doing, and I know there's going to be some inconvenience, especially for West Bucklanders. I have some concerns around your local diversions. Now, Ford Street, the route via Gerbiston Lane, just possibly, maybe, okay-ish for cars. Anything else will cause instant blockages and chaos. Sat-navs will direct unsuitable vehicles down that route, and that's something you need to think of. The World's End junction at Silver Street gives me great concern. Numerous collisions there. And when you're turning Silver Street out onto the A38 to turn right towards Taunton, got very limited vision. And similarly, coming out of Bradford on Tone, turning right towards Wellington, also very limited vision. Queues will form at those junctions because people will feel under pressure to get moving, to get out. And I think that really needs some further thought about what we do with that junction. Hock Hollow Road will suffer. People will shortcut down it. It is a tiny road full of potholes, completely unsuitable. You've answered my question about the A38, the access to Foxmoor. I'm aware that last night it came up that you will be installing plenty of advance notices on the Blackdown Hill Spine Road at the top for getting people earlier down to the A38. And hopefully you'll put loads of unsuitable for HGV large vehicle signs on the appropriate roads. Just to draw your attention, in case you didn't already know, Sawyers Hill, where you're going to put your compound, the river there floods quite regularly, so you need to be aware of that. Looking at some ecological stuff, the roundabout, you may or may not know, but about 20 years ago, this was planted up as a nature reserve. It's full of cowslips and orchids. I'd like to see that those are protected. Also on the north side of Sawyers Hill, that is full of orchids and cowslips and wild sweet peas. Again, can we avoid churning them up? Last point, noise. I hear that you're going to do some work overnight. Presumably that will be well publicised and people locally will get to hear about the hours. That's my list.
Thanks, Sarah. Much appreciated. A lot of those points have come up, and I'll hand back to the team. I don't know if anybody wants to answer those, particularly on the diversion points, but I would stress that this is exactly why we have these sessions. It's really important to pick up. You have the local knowledge. You are the local experts. And we will be taking concerns around traffic management and talking to our Streetworks team about that. And we do have, the ability to work with them and look at measures to mitigate issues. But I'll pivot back to the team and just see if anybody wants to respond to those at all. I know those issues all came up last night.
Yeah, that's fine, Andy. It's good. We're definitely discovering some common threads. So thanks for the feedback. It is genuinely very helpful. The Ford Street point has been raised several times, as you probably noted from viewing both presentations. We've already picked up the issue of signing on the Blackdowns and the signing. We're going to review the entirety of the diversion route signing strategy in order that we pick up as many of those issues as we possibly can. We've got several people have raised the suitability of the World's End Junction. We'll take that away and look at that and look at the accident history on that. The river flooding on the lane, we weren't aware of that, so thank you for bringing that to our attention. Again, that's something that we'll need to look at for siting a compound there. The planting and the orchids did come up last night. Richard Needs, as designer, gave some assurance that in the first instance we're not undertaking work in that area. That said, it's reasonable to anticipate that a heavy-handed contractor could end up parking something on there or something like that and doing damage. So we will be bringing that to the attention of the contractor and trying to make sure that they avoid any damage in that area. And finally, the noise point with regards to nights, yes, we will be making contact with adjacent residents when we're working nights to make sure that they're aware of any potential for noise disruption. That said, we're not anticipating noise being a problem for residents adjacent to the works. We believe that the noise will fall within the environmental health regulations to which we're forced to abide to. I hope that gives you some comfort on the majority of your queries, Sarah.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Charles.
Yeah, hi. I'd just like to support Sarah's comments and ask the team: has anybody actually driven down the road to Ford Street, the Gerbston Lane, past the Hall, and have you driven down the road to Hock Hollow, past Buckland House? these are single lane, narrow, full of potholes, full of lots of bends. They are not suitable, in my opinion, as divertory routes at all. So, I mean, has the team investigated these?
Yeah, Charles, again, I'll probably pick that one up as the well, I wouldn't quite say local, but local to the Black Downs, who uses that way to access the M5 and the Wellington area. So I know the areas that you're talking about, and I fully appreciate the point that you're making with regards to the restrictions on the lane. The point with regards to Gerbston Lane is it is just the local diversion route for the traffic that's along that lane that can't get through. So we're not proactively diverting additional traffic down there. It's a means of access and egress for those people on Gerbston. Is it Gerbston or Gerbston? I'm never quite sure which. Yeah, for that lane. Yeah.
Okay, well, yes, thank you. But I concur with Sarah's points that it may be just for local people, but sat-navs are going to take a lot of people down that way, and there will be some interesting situations occurring.
I understand the point. I think just to further clarify, there will be road ahead closed signs on the entrance to that as you drop down from the levels as well. So we're picking up no access to junction 26 signs on the Black Downs themselves before you drop down effectively, and we'll also have road ahead closed signs at the individual junctions. So we'll be doing everything we can to try and minimise anyone going down there and having to turn around and come back out or anything of that nature. But yeah, I take the point. It's a rural location. The lanes are narrow. Yeah, we understand.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles. Simon Bellamy.
Yep, just turning my sound back on. Yeah, I think it's Sarah and Charles well covered on those points, and yeah, reiterate that I mean, you can explore lots of different avenues, like bizarre ones, perhaps like making the route from Hooknoller to West Buckland an inroad and like one way and out up to the World's End the other direction. But I think it's you're a winner in a loser's game there. It's not it's not a good road at all, as the two previous comments were. So yeah, I'm not going to solution here. You're gonna have to resolve that yourself, I'm afraid. But something new that I could bring might be a slightly trivial matter, but there's some nice graffiti on the M5 bridge where the work's going to be going on. Hopefully that'll get cleared up. It's just a trivial thing, but hey, if you're going to spend that much money and time doing it, let's get rid of that off the wall as well, really. And the can we make attention to potholes on the diversionary routes, like to junction 27 and wherever they are, as a bit of a priority, because it's going to get a lot of traffic, extra traffic because of that. And also, how a different question, the rural community, farmers and such like, how do you know that they're engaged and are able to attend to their agricultural lands properly? Any problems with that? What's your method of communication for that? That's it for me.
Thank you, Simon. Greg, is that covered off on our contractor communications with local businesses?
So they will deal with the immediate local businesses, I guess it depends how far out Simon's referring to, because obviously a lot of villages quite a long way out from this map will be affected by it. So I think it'll be a mixture of both contractor liaison, but also Somerset liaison as well, with the stuff you've already lined up, Andrew, in terms of public drop-in sessions and the like, in terms of getting that message out to them.
Indeed. Hopefully we will capture the wider community as part of those drop-ins, and we will be publicising. I mean, this is the very beginning, really, of our engagement, and we hope to capture the wider community and give people the opportunity to raise those issues. We'll have a dedicated email address, and as I say, we'll have those drop-ins, 2 drop-ins in Wellington and 1 in West Buckland. I'm conscious, Richard, that you may want to come in on that point. Or you're just on mute, Richard.
There we go. Just building on it, really, Andrew. I think it's always difficult, isn't it, in a rural location such as this, to capture everybody. There will be, picking up on your point, Simon, about the rural community and agricultural industry. There'll be people all over the Blackgowns to the south of this, I'm sure, and to the north, that utilise this route to access the both the land and the strategic network. We will reach, or we will use all the channels, all the tools available to us, social media and such like, and press releases and newspapers, etc., to get the message out there. But we'd also, it's the reason why we undertake these sessions, because we'll seek your help as well to get the message out there to people as well, and to distribute it, because with all the will in the world, there's always someone who may slip through the net. So yeah, any help that you guys can afford us as well in reaching out to some of those specific users, we're really grateful for. As I said before, we'll provide our contact details via the website, so that those people can make direct contact with us if they've got any concerns regards to anything, be it accessing fields or accessing the motorway for market, or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Can we go to Beverly Moore?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hi. So I've got one thing to raise, concern to raise, and one question. So start with the concern. I live on Silver Street, and I'm just aware of, how much traffic already goes up and down there: tractors, lorries, service vehicles, horses, and particularly traffic going down that wants to go to Taunton, turning right. As I know Sarah's already highlighted, it is particularly already quite dangerous. There's been lots of accidents, but it is just difficult because you've got traffic moving fast along the A38, then you've got Bradford-on-Tone traffic trying to navigate that, and also the Heather Cut Port, is it, across the road, almost adjacent to the junction. So you've got 4 different things to try and navigate. Plus sometimes, and I have popped in on the World's End a couple of times to ask, can they please move their signs back, because you can't see right. As Sarah said, there's quite limited access looking right to go to Taunton. So it is tricky getting out of that junction. You really have to sort of put your foot down and be a bit brave sometimes to get out. So that is a bit of a concern. I'm also aware that obviously the children coming to school normally come up Sears Hill. That's where pretty much I see the traffic coming up for children. A lot of the children, I believe, that go to West Buckland School actually don't live in the village. Quite a large amount don't. So there is, in the mornings and the pick-up times, a lot of traffic. And looking at the route, I can't see that they'd probably go any other way than up Silver Street. So as we pointed out, the little road, what it's called, on we keep talking about, down to Willowbrook, as we say, it's full of potholes and probably not a good road to be using. But a lot of traffic coming up Silver Street would also cause quite a lot of problems as well. There are bends where you can't see around the corner, and where I live, which is right on the edge of the village, very regularly you get problems with build-up of traffic because they can't get past the lorry, or there's just too many cars trying to pull in. There's a couple of inlets, one by my house where you pull in. And I'm not raising that because it causes me a particular problem. You know, I'm just raising it because I can see if you doubled that, you're probably going to have quite a lot of problems. And I think particularly, I feel at the World's End, you're going to get quite a build up of traffic if they want to go to Taunton from the village, because although I suppose they would still go that, if you're coming out, you'd always go on that road, but then you've got other traffic that's got to go to Wellington that way, haven't you? So anyway, that's the raising of those things really. I don't know if we can do more really to make it more visible turning right. That is the particular nasty point, trying to turn right at the bottom at World's End. So that's my concerns raised. I just, while I'm listening to all about the road construction, it'd just be nice to know that in terms of noise reduction when it's completed, you know, will it be the same noise levels with the new road surface? Will it be better or the same? You know, just a question that I had really.
I'll pick that one up if you like. The concrete carriageway is much noisier than any asphalt surfacing that we lay. So the noise level after we finish will be much reduced.
Well, that's good to hear. Something positive. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Beverly, I'll just close off. We're hearing a consistent theme about the World's End junction, so we will look at that. I hear what you're saying about visibility turning right. Again, we'll look at that to see if there's anything that can be done. Quite often, trimming back the grass, moving signs a little bit can go a long way. So we'll go and see. We'll send someone out and go and have a look at that.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of tractors go up and down there, and also there's a stables as you're just approaching the village on your left hand side, so you get horses coming in and out of there as well.
Okay, thank you. Richard.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the fact that the link road, because of the rubberization technique, I believe it's going to be, the level of that road is going to be sort of slightly raised, which will have a beneficial effect on flooding. So hopefully it will make a difference both in noise and in flood levels. So that's kind of two positives, I suppose, we can take out of this. But, I'm sure Richard Needs can elaborate a bit better on that than I can.
Yeah, of course. The existing drainage is via basically just some gaps in the curb line, which lead to a ditch at a lower level. Many of those grips have been filled up over time with debris and silt. And the fact is, by raising the road some 300 mil, we'll get a much better gradient off the carriageway down to the ditch, and therefore the drainage will be much more efficient.
Thank you, Richard. Peter Berman. You're just on mute, Peter.
Right. First of all, that the World's End junction, do remember the right-hand turn is just as bad from Bradford going towards Wellington. It is, you know, that is a bad junction, and please look at it both ways. Living in Wiveliscombe, just a sort of sidebar, I wonder if we could take advantage of this closure to do one thing that's, I know Sanford Arundel have been after for ages. Coming down past Whitehall from the Devon border, you can still turn left on the old road to Wiveliscombe. And equally, coming up from Holywell Lake, you can get up to the Whitehall. Everything in the world it's crying out for a one way between the A38 and the junction that comes up from the Bean Bridge. Could you just think about that? Because more people are going to be using that road. And again, ruddy sat-nav takes you that way. It doesn't know about going down to the Bean Bridge. You signpost it, but sat-nav will take you via that very narrow and dangerous bit of road. If you could just make it one way down from the A38, it would make the world of difference.
Thank you, Peter. I mean, that's obviously not within the scope of this project, but we can certainly I'll defer to you, Richard. That's something perhaps we can talk to colleagues about.
Andy, can
feed
I?
that back. Yeah,
I'll
sorry, Andy.
potentially no, I'll potentially come in on that. I'm aware that that is something that's been considered as part of the works around that area and as part of the safety scheme. I think there's been some active conversations both with the local parish council and as well one of the affected landowners. There are properties in that area. It's not possible to make it one way because of the configuration of the road and getting access and egress from one of the private properties. So I know it's something that has been looked at, but it's the turning movements effectively in and out of those properties, affected by making it one way. You're actually restricting the ability for them to get access to their own property. So I think the point's well made because it's quite a narrow road, and two-way flows on there are quite challenging. But it's been the subject of much debate, I think, with our traffic management colleagues to look at the right solutions. But alas, I think it's a very difficult nut to crack.
Thank you very much, Andy. Just keeping the flow moving because we have a few hands. So Beverly and Charles, you both got your hand up. Beverly, is that another question or a legacy hand, as they say?
It's a legacy hand. I don't know how to turn it
Okay. Okay, no problem. Charles, you wanted to come back in? Just on mute, Charles.
Beg your pardon. Yeah, I live up in Blackmore, and I'm very aware that we have rush hour. I mean, it's not like London, I admit, but we do have a rush hour, you know, in the morning and the evenings, because this is a sort of through route, obviously, for commuters. Has any traffic modelling taken place? We've heard about the concerns, and I agree with them, of using the diversions and the problems with the World's End Junction. Has anybody actually sat down and done the traffic modelling and sort of measured traffic flow, numbers of vehicles, etc., and what impact this may have? Because we haven't heard that. So that's one question. My other question is the link road, when it's finished, is it going to look the same as it currently does, with sort of two lanes in one direction and one in the other, or are we going to have modification to that? That's my questions. Thank you.
Andy, do you want me to come in on the traffic modelling point?
Absolutely, thank you, Andy.
Yeah, no, similar questions were raised yesterday, and indeed with the conversations with the MPs today, particularly given the pressures that would exist at junctions 27 and 25, and also in particular through Taunton as a result of displaced traffic, because you're looking at fairly significant flows, of course, that otherwise would be using junction 26, and those are going to be displaced to 26, to 25 and 27. So yes, we have undertaken traffic modelling. Traffic modelling itself is a theoretical science. But we've supplemented that with the conversations with our own streetworks colleagues, but also with our own selves in terms of managing our works on the network. So, for example, Taunton, many of you will know, is the subject of roadworks at the moment around Hurdle Way and the like. We've ensured that our works on those diversion routes are free of traffic. So by the time we implement the works in the middle of June, Hurdle Way, for example, will be clear. We've also been working with the utility companies to make sure that those works are clear. The works at Blackdown Garden Centre, for example, will also be completed by that point. And we've been in dialogue, as Richard Neves was saying, with Devon County Council about the A38 south to junction 27, ensuring that that's clear of roadworks. So I think we've done everything we reasonably can to ensure that the diversion routes to 26, 27 and 25 are free of traffic. And we've also satisfied ourselves that the displaced traffic through Taunton and downwards towards Tiverton can be managed within acceptable levels. And indeed, that was a critical conversation to be having with our National Highways colleagues, particularly given the resilience of the strategic road network and the like. So there's been quite a lot of work done on that. And we've done about as much as I think as we can do to ensure that we've kept the network free. The only proviso I would say is we can't predict everything. There may be emergency works that are required during the course of our works. For example, if there are emergency utility works, gas main leaks, whatever, but it's very difficult to be able to predict those kind of scenarios. But you know, we can say with as much confidence as we can that the network will be clear during the duration of the works.
Thank you, Andy. And on the second point about the configuration of the road isn't changing. That's correct, isn't it, Richard Gorse?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to close that one off. The funding that's been secured in order to deliver the project is maintenance funding, and as such, that's what this scheme is. It's about dealing with a problem, a maintenance problem, which is the deteriorating concrete carriageway. So there's no alterations to the carriageway in terms of widening or such. Like we had a question yesterday about, are you going to make it a dual carriageway in both directions, for instance? The answer is no. For all intents and purposes, it's going to look and feel like the same thing. There are minor tweaks to road markings and signing and chevrons and things like that, but there's no substantial fundamental change in the look and feel of the road at the end of the scheme, other than it'll be black, not concrete, and be new.
Thanks, Richard. Beverly, you do want to come back in now? Please do.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think of it until Charles raised it earlier. But just thinking about whenever there's been a problem on the motorway, you know, and traffic has to be diverted through Taunton, the A38, which I'm sure you probably are aware of, but it just sort of occurred to me, just gets gridlocked. So all traffic wanting to go southbound is going to have to come along the A38, isn't it? And I can see that being really busy. Well, it often, obviously, it probably isn't going to come up West Buckland because you can't get down to Suez Lane, but that's what usually happens. It gets gridlocked on A38, and then a lot of the traffic tries to come up West Buckland to get through. But I just don't know how aware you are of just how busy that A38 is anyway. And then if you close motorway, that's what we experience all the time when there's a problem on the motorway and it gets closed at Taunton or Wellington, then it just gets gridlocked. And I just thought, as a local person, I'll just make you aware just of how much that regularly happens anyway. And then we get people all coming up into West Buckland because they're trying to find a way through.
Thanks, Beverly.
Thank you,
I'll invite Greg Brock, if that's possible, just to talk briefly about the traffic management issues associated with the wider strategic network, because again, this is something that came up yesterday, and I thought, Greg, you had provided a good, insightful answer on.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Yeah, so this has obviously been subject to numerous conversations with National Highways. You know, National Highways are aware of the issues they have on their network, and they're obviously going to be part of supporting this project as well. So if there is, well, I say if, I probably should say when there is an incident on the M5, because that it is inevitable. National Highways will try and divert traffic off well before these junctions. So for traffic heading north, they will use their variable messaging signage down in Exeter to try and send traffic up the A30 towards the 303 and then back up the 358 to get on at junction 25. And likewise for southbound traffic, they will try and bring that traffic off at junction 25 onto the 358 and down the 303 to rejoin the motorway at Exeter. So National Highways will try and deal with that bigger picture of you know, getting the traffic off the network sooner. But I don't think I can really get around the fact that whenever the motorway is closed, it is always horrendous. It is always congested, and unfortunately, there's little we can do about that apart from just trying to give people as much notice as possible.
Thanks, Greg. Simon, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, just something that I noticed is the consideration for footpaths that might be affected by this in the area. By looking at the ordnance survey map, there's a couple that are joined So it's just a matter of putting the right signage up, I guess, that says this is closed because of the works here. There's a couple that join Sawyers Hill. I don't know how much they're used, but if you look at the Ordnance Survey 125,000, there's a big blue number 26 there, which obscures a rather unusual occurrence of the footpath piece, which is actually on the roundabout pretty much itself, really. It comes off Howard's Lane and through the edge of the northbound slip road to the roundabout.
It doesn't go through the round. I'm just looking at the OS map at the moment, Simon, and the 1 to 25,000 map. I can see those footpaths, but none of them go through the roundabout, do they? Because there's the Sawyers Hill one, which crosses the motorway on the eastern extent, and then there's the Haywoods one, which goes through the nursery and crosses the motorway at the western extent. So
yeah, but at the bottom of the Haywoods Lane, it actually carries on. Charles will probably pick me up to add to this if possible. But there's a footpath from there that goes to the roundabout itself, actually meeting the circular part of the roundabout right on where the northbound junction hits, and it starts to go towards the Chelston link.
I can see what you mean. That it's not marked as a footpath, is it? But the lane continues. It's underneath the number 26, isn't it, on the mapping?
Yeah, that's right.
But it seems to take you onto the slip road, doesn't it?
If there's a public footpath there, if you walk it, you can find it. I've actually got on screen the footpath map.
Yeah, I can see.
And not the ordnance survey map.
The important thing on that is that the contractor will maintain pedestrian access through the works. They either on the direct line of the existing path or via an alternative crossing immediately adjacent to it.
Yeah, well, I should imagine, I'm guessing here, could be completely wrong, so definitely push back, but I don't expect me to know, but when you actually see what it is and where it lies, that'll probably just get buried in earth and whatever. So during the works, whatever, because it's all pretty heavy duty stuff, and it could do with redoing. It's pretty bad now, actually. Charles, you might want to add to this.
Yes, if I can come in very briefly.
Yes, of course.
The point that Simon makes is correct. There is a path that goes from Haywoods down to the roundabout, but you're correct. It's not a public footpath. We looked at this in the parish council fairly recently and really didn't come to much of a conclusion. It's almost a historic path. It's unadopted. As I say, it's not a public right of way as such. It is just access through there along that lane onto the motorway. And it was commented recently that it was all overgrown and difficult to get through, but it's not maintained because it's not a footpath. Yeah, it's a bit of a moot point. I can't. And that carried on. If it was on an old local map that was produced showing routes around West Buckland, and it showed it crossing the roundabout into Sawyers Hill and carrying on that way. But that won't be accessible anyway. It's going to be a difficult one with all that work going on, and as it's not a public right of way, I'll probably put my foot in it here by saying possibly it might be better to close that and dissuade pedestrians from trying to use it, because it could end up with difficulties for your contractors and the pedestrians. That's about all I can say, really.
Shall we, Charles, try and gain local opinion at our meetings?
Yeah, I think we could certainly do that. We have a parish council meeting coming. We can discuss it. We can discuss it a bit more fully there.
Can we let Richard come in on that point? I think Richard wants to come in.
I think what we probably both need to revert on it. We'll liaise with our rights of way colleagues to understand the what we believe to be the status of the route, and the team will take away an action to look at public footpaths in general in the area. It's a good point with regards to public footpaths, so we'll take that away.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, everyone, so far for your questions. Do we have any further questions?
Yeah.
I want to reassure you that you will get a recording of this presentation, of the meeting and the presentation. You'll get the slide deck. You'll get a briefing. Now, I've just had a ticking off from a councillor who said, how many more of these are we going to get? You've already sent it to me 3 times, but I'd rather everybody had all the materials than people weren't getting them. So please forgive us if we do send them to you more than once. Michelle is assisting me with that. Everything from today, along with the members briefing and a link to the press release, will be sent out to you in due course. And can I just take this opportunity to thank you wholeheartedly for your input and for your attendance. It's completely invaluable for the team, and may we keep our channels of communications open and have an open sort of channel, as it were, as we move on through the preparation and then into the project. We will be putting out some details on the website shortly, which will be live soon, and you will have the contact details on that. But if you have any queries, please don't hesitate to get in contact with any of us, Michelle, myself, or any of the team. Does anyone have anything they wish to add before we wrap things up?
Just to say, I look forward to seeing you at one of the drop-ins, which I no doubt I'm sure many of you will attend. So look forward to that.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. Yes, we'll look forward to meeting you face to face. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time. And on that note, we'll wrap things up. And no doubt we'll be meeting you and speaking to a lot of you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.